Today we're talking about the top 50 AI applications for work that you haven't tried yet, but you probably will at some point in the future. Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief. Today we are talking about the top 50 AI for work applications that you might not have tried yet, but that you probably will. And technically that's not the name of the report. The report that we're looking at is Andreessen Horowitz's recent AI application spending report. To generate this report, A16Z worked with Mercury, which is one of the big fintech banks out there. It's really them and Brex. We are customers of both of them, by the way, who tons and tons of startups work with to analyze spending across their customer set. Mercury has over 200,000 customers, which, like I said, are highly concentrated in the startup sector. And the researchers looked at data from June, July, and August of this year. From there, they identified the top 50 AI application providers, which is different, mind you, from infrastructure providers who do things like compute and model development. This, as A16Z puts it, shows where AI is actually being applied in products and workflows. In other words, they say it gives us a signal of what early stage startups are buying in AI, what tools they're using. Now, why I think this is interesting for this particular audience. Broadly speaking, the majority of you guys fall into one of two categories. Not exclusively, but big chunks of you are either one, thinking about and using AI at work in the context of a small business, a mid-market company, or something huge. Another pocket of you are much more individual. You're thinking about how to use AI for your entrepreneurial endeavors, for your solo business, or even if you do work inside a big company, you're thinking about where you can get an edge by doing things, of course, reasonably and without implicating your company's data outside of the standard set of work tools. And that differential between the tools that are available at work for most enterprises and what these startups are using is exactly why I think this is a relevant conversation to have. For so many big enterprises, their choice in AI tools is effectively some combination of Microsoft, Amazon, Salesforce, Google, and maybe now OpenAI and Anthropic. Maybe a couple others have just started to poke their heads in, but there certainly is not the voracious experimentation that you see with these startups. So what's interesting is to see what part of that voracious experimentation is now rising to the surface to become more of an important integrated part of what startups are doing in an ongoing way, because those are the apps that are most likely to rise up and become enterprise grade and the type of thing that big companies are going to have access to in the future. So you can see here the full list. Unsurprisingly, OpenAI and Anthropic are right there at the top. And there's a bunch of others that you probably recognize. You've got Replit, Cursor, 11 Labs, Notion, Canva, Lovable, Glean, Midjourney, Grammarly, etc. But what we're going to do today is try to group these into categories and then try to understand the implications and the patterns. Now, before we do, one quick note about adoption patterns. There is a very clear pattern here, which makes sense, but is still worth noting. Andreessen Horowitz notes that basically 70% of the companies on this list follow a sort of bottoms-up adoption pattern where they can be initially used by individuals and then brought into teams. In other words, they don't require enterprise licenses to get started. In fact, they note that 12 of the companies on here also show up in A16Z's top 100 Gen AI consumer apps, which is a measure of web usage and mobile usage, not revenue. But still, the fact that more than 20% of this list shows up on both shows that there is this clear pattern from consumer to prosumer to enterprise. What's more, 11 of the companies actually started entirely as individual products and then moved over in the enterprise. A big blinking takeaway for me is that if you are trying to be a forward-thinking enterprise, no matter how big you are, trying to understand the consumer tools that your employees are using is a really good place to look to understand what opportunities the organization as a whole might have. But now with that, let's get back to our grouping of the different categories of these companies. I think broadly speaking, they fit into 11-ish categories. Foundation models and general assistance, which frankly could be two different categories, but we're going to put them together because they all represent very core foundational type technologies. Group 2 we'll call enterprise knowledge and AI search. Group 3, which is one of the biggest categories in terms of the number of companies there, is meeting notes and comms capture. Group 4, the other sort of definitive biggest, is creative and content. Group 5 is sales and go-to-market automation. Group 6 is customer support. Group 7, legal tech. Group 8, HR and recruiting. Group 9, dev tools and vibe coding. Group 10, IT ops, finance and compliance. And Group 11, believe it or not, real-time meeting coaching. Speaking just very quickly to that last group because it's the only one with a single entrant, despite some people thinking that they are just a flashy launch video and a loud founder, the quote-unquote cheating app Cluely is up there at number 26. Now, this very much makes me want to understand what that is actually being used for and how it fits inside of work, but it's there, it's a real thing. Overall, I think this broadly reflects kind of what I might have thought. Of course, you're going to have foundational models in here. Of course, there was going to be a ton of meeting notes and comms capture and creative and content. Now, one thing that I might note in those two categories is that it still feels very clearly open and like there isn't one definitive winner in those categories yet. A lot of the functionality of these tools is overlapping. For example, in that creative and content category, FreePic, Canva, Photo Room all have similar functionality. And of course, in the meeting notes and comm capture, again, there is not necessarily one definitive leader. A couple that do stand out as a little more singular in those categories, Descript at 31 seems to be the leading full-scale video editing suite, and Gamma at 24 has clearly emerged as the singular AI presentation tool for now, although I certainly don't think that means that those companies have things all locked up. Same with 11 Labs at number 5 from a voice and audio perspective. But let's broaden it out a little bit and talk more generally about some of the interesting implications from this. The first is that at the moment, horizontal beats niche, at least slightly. Right now, the spend mix skews about 60-40 towards horizontal apps as opposed to highly vertical applications. This was one of A16Z's conclusions as well. The way that they divide horizontal and vertical is horizontal tools are those that can be used by anyone across the company, whereas vertical tools target specific roles. Within the horizontal application side, there are, of course, the ones that you recognize: OpenAI, Anthropic, Perplexity, Notion, Manus, Glean. Then, of course, all of the note-taking tools all tend to be generalist and horizontal as well, like Fixer, HappyScribe, and Otter. Now, where it gets interesting is that the line between horizontal and vertical is actually getting blurrier because of AI. The way that A16Z puts it is that while they might previously have looked at creative tools and vibe coding tools as vertical in the sense that they were focused on particular subsections of the companies, the fact that they are as usable and that they can do as much as they can actually makes them definitionally horizontal. In other words, creative tools are no longer just for design and marketing. They can be used by anyone across the company. Same, of course, with vibe coding. We're going to talk about vibe coding a lot during this episode. Vibe coding tools have very much jumped out of the ranks of just software developers into product folks, designers, even people across the company who are using it for a variety of different reasons. Honestly, vibe coding is one of the big themes from this as well. In the agentic coding section, we had Replit, Cursor, Lovable, Emergent, and Cognition all showing up. So a full 10% of these applications were touching code in some way. And one interesting comparison as different from the general consumer apps, Lovable was up ahead of Replit when it came to consumer use. Replit was 41 in A16Z's latest top 50. But in this one, Replit was meaningfully ahead of Lovable. In fact, it was number 3, even ahead of Cursor. Now, I think what this speaks to is the idea that even if applications follow this consumer to prosumer to enterprise kind of flow, there are going to need to be a different set of tools, controls, integrations, etc., to make things work in an enterprise context. And at least for now, Replit really seems to have that above its other competitors. Basically, the closer to production you get, the more startups are willing to pay. One of the things that we see here that I think mirrors larger enterprises is that distribution and integration into existing tools does still provide value, even if this is the subset of companies that are the most willing to experiment with totally net new platforms. So for example, you have Glean, which sits on top of existing SaaS with permission-aware search. You've got Notion, of course, where AI is happening where company documents already live, and Notion is up in the top 10. Basically, even when it comes to startups, there is still value in having existing distribution inside those companies and existing integrations with their data as it operates now. Another interesting pattern is that there are a number of companies that follow a pattern of integration and bring your own model. This should say reduces friction. Apologies, we're moving fast here. Cursor is maybe the best example of this, where you have a lot of control over the coding models you use, as well as your enterprise controls. Retail plugs into existing telephony systems. Customer I/O and Crisp both connect to teams across multiple channels. Basically, it does seem like in certain cases, startups are rewarding flexibility when it comes to how a particular tool gets implemented in ways that can be customized to their existing systems. Now, number 5, on the one hand, we only see the one generalist agent, Manus at number 33. But if you're following the show closely, you know that there just aren't all that many other competing generalist agents yet. It's just still really early in that space. It is notable, I guess, that GenSpark isn't on here, but that does not mean that the agentic modality isn't represented. In fact, I think that you can argue that AI employees are moving from hype to actual line items. There is a small but very important set of tools on here that have the potential to go way farther than just augmenting existing roles. So companies I might put in this category are 11x, which is an SDR or sales agent, Serval, which is an IT help desk type agent, Crosby, which helps with legal, and Alma, which helps with immigration. And then you can kind of put Cognition in here. It gets a little blurry when it comes to where augmented developers versus wholly agentic developers live, but certainly Cognition is pushing farther into the background agent, coding agents working for you as opposed to just augmenting your own code, than do some of the other coding platforms like Lovable and Replit. This is in some ways the meta category that I'm most interested in watching to see how it evolves over time, and the one that I would expect to grow significantly. But I think what we're seeing already here is that if platforms can actually deliver results against measurable outcomes, be it meetings booked or tickets resolved or whatever it is, startups are excited and ready to pay. Now, in terms of where agents are showing up, certainly compliance and IT seems to be an early target. That makes sense. These are areas that are must-haves, but aren't going to change the outcome of a startup one way or another. So the more that they can do to automate that and get it off their plate and get it out of their mind space, the better. You've got Delve, which does SOC 2 and HIPAA evidence gathering, Serval, which we just talked about, Combinely, which is for accounting workflows. It makes sense to me that this and in general back office stuff is an area where companies are looking to automate as soon as they can. And relatedly, there's also a pattern, I think, where channels that have clearer and harder ROI are going to get more of the budget initially. This is, I think, why you can see so many tools in the sales and marketing area. Those tools directly increase pipeline, and then especially when it comes to sales, directly help convert that pipeline, meaning that you understand the output in really clear ways. And that's part of why I think there are so many that show up on this list. Now, part of that is, of course, also that there are just a preponderance of these tools and that AI is really good at this stuff. But I do think that when it comes to a startup spend perspective, there also is actually an ROI calculus here. A couple more small implications to close us out. One, it does appear for companies that China is an option. It's not all over here, but you do have Kling and CapCut both showing up. And number 9, there is one tiny little indication that maybe if done right, hardware has a place. I'm looking specifically at Plod here at number 38. Plod is a note-taking brand. And what's interesting is that they actually make hardware. It's designed for in-person usage, and apparently is making the bet that an unobtrusive device is better and less jarring and less destabilizing than just having your phone out on the table recording things. And apparently some founders agree. So if you are Johnny Ive and Sam Altman thinking about the future of AI hardware devices, maybe there is an enterprise play here that the initial wave of not so successful launches is underselling the potential of. So really interesting stuff here. And in addition to just seeing how it evolves, the last note that I wanted to share is that this came out alongside a broader report that Mercury had done around startups in general. You can tell that when it comes to startups right now, there is a lot of anxiety. 89% said that they're worried about general economic uncertainty. 83% said that they're worried about tariffs. 80% said that they're worried about stock market volatility. It is not necessarily a jubilant time. However, they found pretty dramatically that the companies that reported significant AI use had much higher confidence levels than those that didn't. When asked how their confidence in their own financial prospects had improved between 24 and 25, 42% of the AI adopter companies said that it had significantly improved, as opposed to 28% of the non-AI adopters. So if you need another reason to dig in and try out more AI tools, maybe the confidence boost alone is worth it. Anyways, hope that this gives you some ideas of new platforms to try and check out. For now, that is going to do it for today's AI Daily Brief. Appreciate you listening as always. Until next time, peace.